What is up, all you beautiful people? It is I, AkemiTCG, back here with the brand new podcast. I think this is number 7 of the Yugi panel.
7?
I think we are number 7, or either 6 or 7, one of those. But anyways, we have a special guest with us. We have Thomas from Team Sakurasou.
The only guy to get my name correct. Yes, Thomas from Team Sakurasou here. What I like to do on my channel, if you guys don't know, is I do a lot of deck profiles. I do my own market watches, which are very insightful since I also do the stock market as well. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about and I have a pretty good track record to boot. I also have some of my own personal series, like 5 cards having your trade binder. Telling you guys 5 cards to pick up, why and why they're going to skyrocket. I also have a bunch of other videos going over like Yu-Gi-Oh news. I have a lot of openings. I love opening OTS packs, like harder sets to get, but I also open up new sets. So I do a lot of things on my channel. I'm a little shy of 600 subs right now. So if you guys could get me to that, that'd be awesome. Just check me out. Link will be in the description. And yeah, let's get right into my favorite deck, Madolches.
So today, I believe Team Sakurasou, Thomas, is going to kind of give us a brief history of Madolches from its infancy all the way to how strong it currently is in the current format.
Yeah.
And I believe you have a final deck profile for us as well.
Yeah, pretty
Eternity
good final
Code?
deck profile as well. From Eternity Code, I also have a deck profile on my channel that I uploaded 2 or 3 days ago. And I'm still playtesting, but yeah.
Okay, let's go right into this. So the first deck, you can see my screen, right? Just making sure?
Yes.
Perfect.
Completely fine.
So this is going to be post. What set is this? I can't even see it.
Return of the Duelist.
Return of the Duelist.
So Return of the Duelist, I believe this was in 2011. I was actually in 7th grade at the time, and I remember opening packs to hopefully pull a Madolche Pudding Cess Ultra Rare, or an Ulti, or a Madolche. So I remember playing at this time. So this was when Madolches was, like Akemi said, in its infancy, right? So a lot of people didn't really know the builds, and Yu-Gi-Oh was a lot different back then. So if you guys are looking at this like it's trash, this is like really old Yu-Gi-Oh, okay? It's old at least right now. It doesn't feel too old to me and people like Akemi who played like Dragon Ruler format, but it was. So this this build is kind of old, but the thing with this is, you know, Madolches didn't really have a win condition or a win con at this point. They also didn't have their XYZ Tiramisu at the time. That would release later in Abyss Rising, which is the next set after this. But getting this set, we got only a couple key cards that are still played today, which would be Chateau, Madolche, Pudding Cess, and then depending on what player you are, Mufil. So, you know, because it's not an awful card, but some Madolche players don't really like it today. So Madolche was a super rare, and you had to play 3 to search out your Mufil, because more of the win con of this deck would be normal summoning Mufil to special summon Pudding Cess, because she could be 2300 attack, because she gains 800 attack if there's no monsters in the graveyard. And after damage calculation, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy that target, right? So this was a 2300 card, 2300 attack card, which would keep popping your opponent's cards, right? Dealing damage, all that, so you could pop their sets, their field spells. And removal like this was actually pretty good, and it was very easy to get on field because of Mufil. And when you have Chateau on the field, if you had the combo right, whenever they would get destroyed, let's pretend your opponent Dark Hold, right? Because Dark Hold was a staple back then. Both of them would come to your hand, Mufil and Pudding Cess, and you were able to normal summon Mufil next turn and special summon Pudding Cess. So you could still get this play going right away, right? And then you would play kind of more heavy traps, so you could interrupt your opponent and just keep breaking their board, really, right? Not that board's really good at setting up back in the day like they are now,
right?
But that's what you used to really do. You used to take stuff like Thunder King, because when Madolche's got a top back then, Thunder King was a really good stun card, right? Because Thunder King was very popular back then. It was before Shadow Specters. We got it in trap form, which was Mistake, and then in Colossus. I hate that card.
We don't talk about Colossus. This is before Colossus, okay?
yeah, we don't talk about Colossus even now. But yeah, so this is like the closest thing to let you guys know how old of Yu-Gi-Oh we were. A lot of these cards got outclassed literally the set after, because a lot of them aren't very good, right? So Madolche, Mufil, and Pudding Cess, all fine, right? But Bluntler Rusk was not as good of a card, and the reason because of this is because it's a worse Messenger Lotto, right?
Absolutely.
Because when the card's summoned, you can have field spell to deck your hand, but you have to control another Madolche, right? So this was kind of like how you would get to your field spell, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was very slow because it's not like you normal summon it, you can get your field spell. You literally have to control another Madolche, and this card has to be normal summon, so you can't Mewfill for this, right?
Right.
This card was pretty awful. Like, people played it because you were literally forced, right? So once we're gonna get in a second here, gonna get to Abyss Rising.
Mm-hmm.
This was literally people hated this card, right? Once this card could be out of the deck, people were glad. Chauffeur, which was a rare, as well, by the way, was not as horrible of a card, but still you're kind of just forced to play it because we didn't have as many Madolche cards at this point. Was that your opponent basically cannot target Madolche cards for attacks except for him, so he'd be 2200 with Chateau. So he's the highest attack Madolche monster with Chateau, right? But you know, with Messenger Law, it's 2100, still does the job perfectly. You can only target him. It kind of was like a half Marauder effect, right, between him and Mewfill, really. Right. I think it's called Captain Marauder. If you guys know that old card, right? So this was like whatever. You just kind of played it for the name, right? And I don't even think you played 3. I think you played 2, but yeah, it mostly focused on the top cards, but you have to play these really bad cards because there was no other option, right? So post Return of the Duelist, where Prophecy was introduced and Heroics and all that, and a couple other cards like Chronomalies, right? While people were interested in this deck, people were playing Hieratic still, and it didn't really make much of an impact on the format at all, but people did really like playing this deck because it was like one of the first cute shit decks, right?
Yeah.
And I remember actually being able to pull not one but 2 of my Magellans, and I got so happy because that was the best way to get cards back in. Well, not the best way to get cards, but as a 12-year-old, best way to get cards. Maybe I was even 11 actually. I don't know. We're talking a lot, and I'm like 22 right now, guys. So long time ago. And then as for the trap cards, very quickly, these kind of rotated out. We're gonna start with Madolche T-Break very quickly, actually.
Yeah.
So the traps in Madolche's never really went off, but Madolche T-Break was never bad because this was a interrupt because you would be able to return a what's called a smaller trap to the hand, right? But if you control opponent success, you destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So this wasn't a bad card per se, but it returned to the hand, not the deck. So it didn't really see much success at all, and it was a little too gimmicky because you already had to have prerequisite of putting sets to get the full effect of this card. Then you also had to have no monsters engraved, which with Madolche's that's not hard to do at all. But sometimes you'd have like your Thunder King in there. You'd have something else, right? So it is what it is, right? Madolche T-Break just wasn't. It just didn't cut it. We got a better card in Madolche Knights literally next set, right? Which people wouldn't even really bother playing. Not that it's a bad card. We just have way better options, right? But this, I didn't even play it back in the day. And then we had Waltz here. A lot of people saw Madolche's as a slow beatdown deck back then, and this was just like a burn card, right? So yeah, and there wasn't even a way to search it because we didn't even have Messenger Lotto yet, right? Which is there was no search this card. You had to hard draw it, right? And if you have like 2 of these on the field, every time there's like some type of interaction, right? Maybe you get the pop a card with putting sets and do like 300 damage, 600 damage, right? This helped put a little more damage on the board. It's just it wasn't consistent enough. Like the deck, again, no win cons. You just had to figure it out, right? And that's why the deck didn't really soar post Return of the Duelist. But yeah, you also, if you guys are wondering if the Torrential Bottomless and Compulse, I'm just gonna say this one time. This was back in the day where traps, like people were actually able to use traps that weren't activated from the hand, like impermanent evenly. I know we're talking a long time ago, right? But this was like a trio every player used to run, by the way, right? And I remember people not understanding back in the day, including me, actually, because I was like young back then. But I learned, right, is it would be only your opponent's cards if they were destroyed. So if you Darkhold or Torrential, right, your Madolches would hit grave, not the deck. So just something, a fun fact that a lot of players like screwed up on back in the day.
Ah, that makes sense because it says each of the Madolches saying that it has to be destroyed by your opponent's card effect. So if you yeeted your monsters with either Darkhold or Torrential, and I believe literally Darkhold, Torrential, Bottomless, Compulse, and MST were at 1 at this point in time.
So I'm not. Yeah, I was just going over the core for you guys. There's just a few other cards so you guys can like resemble what this format was kind of looking like. Another of this deck was using the extra deck. Like, people used to go into Albervich quite a bit, right? You know, that wasn't too bad because you could do more damage that way. Utopia, right? We didn't have like the best tool engine of rank 4s. Like, we didn't have like Silent Honor R, Castel, right? We didn't have Tornado Dragon. We didn't have Dweller, right? And all that, right? Like, Dweller would be so hot in Dragon Ball format. We got Dweller next set, right? But as of right now, we didn't really have as many options, right? So that we couldn't really focus on the extra. Like, the extra deck helped the deck out a lot, but it wasn't the focus. But yeah, so this deck, not really that good when it first came out, because you couldn't really, it just didn't have everything it needed. And the worst part about this in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today is I see in a lot of sets, like say Ignition Assault, you know, I see a lot of decks that they don't have all they need to actually try to compete, and it's in like the set after, right? Or even 2 sets later, right?
Right.
You know, Plunder Patrol, what's the other deck called? Ancient Warriors, stuff like that. And it's just unfortunate, right? But yeah, that's not what this video is about. We're just going to go on to the next iteration, which is, we have 5 of these, by the way. Abyss Rising, right? So this was the next step in Madolche's, right? And this made Madolche's a playable deck, right? It was a good playable deck, right? And this is kind of where where people start to love it, because there was actually combos now. There's a way to get like your play started, right? And we had really good cards because we got introduced to the best rank 4 in the game. And I am not saying that because I'm biased. There's no other better rank 4 in this game besides Tiramisu, right? Objectively speaking, right? Yeah, I know people are gonna dislike this video. Like, if you're going first, obviously, probably not. Like, you'd rather go into Dweller.
Right.
But anything after turn 1, Tiramisu's the best rank 4 in the game, right? Hands down. But, and I will explain why in a second here. But we have to go through the main deck. So the main deck, as you guys see, really changed because you now did not have to run garbage cards, right?
Right.
Like, the whole deck got revamped, right? Not just like 2 or 3 things even, right? You actually had combos, right? And you can actually put up boards now, right? So you still ran Madolche, Youthful, and Pudding Cess, right? Because Youthful Pudding Cess was still a great combo, you know, back in the day. But that wasn't the only option anymore. That wasn't like the closest thing you had to a win con. So you use Madolche to search out Youthful or Messenger or whatever combo piece you needed. And what you were able to do at this point is actually overlay into boss monsters, and that was your goal, right? Which wasn't difficult because the cards would come back to your hand with Chateau, and you would get searches off Ticket, right? Which Ticket allows you to add Madolches to your hand from your deck if they're returned to the hand or deck, right? And if you control Fairy, you can special summon, right? Which Pudding Cess was a Fairy, so you can actually special summon if your opponent actually just starts destroying your monsters, right? Getting effects that way. And Messenger Lotto right over there, which Madolche Messenger, which is, I'm surprised this doesn't have a reprint as a holographic yet, honestly. So maybe, hopefully, Armageddon at the time of this recording, you know, gives Madolche's a little something. Yeah, like they gave Bapple a super, I remember, like one of these days, and I felt so insulted, right? So insulted. But while this card's not specific, in Madolche's, it's like bread and butter. It's easy to do, simple. When the card's special summoned, you can add a Madolche spell or trap from the deck to your hand, as long as you control a beast type Madolche monster, right? Which Youthful was one, Crustfent was one, and as we get on later on, Hook Cake was one, right? And Hook Cake is the way you usually do it nowadays, but back then it was still consistent enough, even without Hook Cake. And what you used to do is you used to grab your you know, Chateaus and Tickets, right? Which you didn't have to run Chateau at like 3 anymore, right? The players at this point started the big civil war of Madolches, which was what was the best ratio for this. I still hear it to this day. You only need 1 Chateau. No, you need 2 Chateaus. Oh, Tickets, only 1 copy, 2 copies. I'm not even gonna get into that. Whatever ratio you think is fine is good. All I'm gonna say is Chateau is now a combo extender because of Chocolate Alamon. And it's a great card. It's one of the best field spells that was made, at least in Zexal format. And it still holds up very good today, right? With the attack boost and letting you get that advantage to your hand instead of back into your deck. So, I think it's great too, but I don't really want to get into that because we're not talking about builds here. We're talking about the history.
Mhm.
But the point was, since this was searchable, you didn't have to even run terraforming or nothing. You could just simply search your chateau very easily, build your board up, make your pudding scissor, and then finally get into tiramisu. Right? The other cards we had was Maid, right? Which I played one copy when Abyss Rising came out because I really liked it. I think it's called Maid, right?
The Marmalade, you mean? Marmalade?
Yeah, Maid, whatever. Yeah. She looks adorable, by the way. But basically, when the cards flip face up, you can target a Madolche Spark Trap in the graveyard, add that target to your hand. It wasn't too bad, honestly. I mean, it was a big booty as well. And it's 2,500, so your opponent might not be able to deal with it. And then you could just overlay, which was very nice with it. So it wasn't a bad card at 1. I ran 1 at Abyss Rising. I would never run 1 right now. But back then, it was like, whatever, really, right? And then you had CrossFit, which is a card I actually absolutely love, even to this day. I wish you could run it, but it's not as good.
It's slow.
But, yeah, it's just slow, but basically you could return a face-up Madolche card you control to the hand, and if you do, increase this level by 1 and attack by 300, right? So it'd be 2,300 attack if you had Chateau up, right? And you can return Chateau as well, by the way, to reactivate Chateau and then shuffle all the Madolches to your deck, right? But the best part about this card is if you opened up with Ticket, right, you could do plays where you would be able to search, right? Or you'd be able to special summon if you could get a fairy on board with his effect. And that was actually quite fast back in the day. Right? Nowadays, you could just do that with like so many other Madolche cards that it doesn't even matter. But back then, that was actually really good, right? Along with being able to increase its level. One thing you were able to do is people actually played rank 5s in the extra deck. So that because you could actually go into them with Pudding Cess and CrossFit. It was like it was just a lot of fun, right? It was possible. I remember grind games. You could get this like to level 8 or whatever, and it was just like, hold on, how much attack was it? It was like 3,500, right, with Chateau and everything, and it was just so ridiculous, right? It's happened before, and it was just so funny. I don't know. It's one of my favorite Madolche cards, even though I don't run it. It looks adorable. I love the little top hat, right? But yeah, I'm spending too much time on this one card that I shouldn't be able to. Right?
Right.
But basically, the deck had combos now. You would be able to Muflo Messenger Lotto, search Chateau or Ticket, activate Chateau or Ticket. You have 2 good monsters on the board, set your traps, and then next turn you would be able to go off even more by searching, like say normal summon Magdalene, search something, overlay into Tiramisu, make some more plays. But we're gonna get into Tiramisu, which was literally the best card. Plus, I'm Greek, so I love Tiramisu. So this card is just. It just hits me at all my sweet spots, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It really does. Right? Like, you ever have a card at Yu-Gi-Oh! That was made for you?
Personally,
yeah.
actually, no. Not made for me. Absolutely not.
You, like, hyped that up, and I was like, wow. You know, I can't wait for this, man. But this was a rank 4. We're going to read it. It's 2 Madolche monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card. Then target 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard. Shuffle those cards into the deck. After that, shuffle cards your opponent controls into the deck. Up to the number of Madolche cards you return. Now, let me specify something that some people might have missed. This is non-targeting. Okay?
Absolutely.
When it comes to your opponent's cards, right? So you would shuffle 2 of your opponent's cards back into the deck, right? So these are non-destructive effects, so they won't get their effects, all that. Put them back into the deck, and you would not target those cards. So if the card cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects, Tiramisu gets over that because it does not target them. Right? And right, and you get 2 of these, right? And all you have to do is detach 1, so you can do the same thing next turn. Along with amazing stats, 2,200 attack, 2,100 defense. Pretty good stats for a rank 4, but the thing that people forget is that Chateau would give you a 500 attack boost, which you would have Chateau up 85-90% of the time. So it would be 2,700 attack and 2,600 defense, right? And Ticket, right, which since this is a fairy, once you do that, right, and you have Ticket on board, you would proc Ticket and be able to special summon something from the deck to the field, right? So after activating this effect, you'll be able to special summon from your deck any card you want, right? Like you could special summon Pudding Cess, you can special summon Messenger Lotto, because if you also somehow control a beast, you get Messenger Lotto's effect, and then be able to search again. Right? As you guys see, you could actually spam the board. This was a very good combo deck, actually. And a lot of players, this deck only grew in popularity, even without support. This is where Madolche, I believe, got its cult fandom off this set, personally, along with Abyss Rising being a very popular set because of not only this, but Mermails being introduced, I believe, Prophecy getting more of their support, like Fate. You got a little bit more Shark support. I believe there were some other awesome cards in Abyss Rising as well that people really love. Like, people really liked Heroics back in that set. It was actually pretty cool. It also had a really cool Ghost Rare that I love. One of my favorite Ghost Rares off Arc alone, Shark Drake Vice. It's not usable, but what was that?
Yeah, that card looks insane, by the way. Shark Drake Vice, Ghost Rare. I'm just gonna show a picture up here.
Go for it.
Y'all don't see it.
Yeah, if you could, honestly, absolutely beautiful, beautiful card. I remember getting mine at like $10 because Ghost Rares used to be cheap back in the day. But
they were.
Yeah. The last card I'm gonna go over, I skipped over it because I just want to talk about Tiramisu because I like to rush these things a little bit when I get excited. Is Madolche Knights. So I know I had Madolche T-Break, but you didn't have to run it back then. I ran it back then because I was dumb and I wasn't good at deck building. Because I was like, maybe at this point I might have been 13. I could have still been 12 because this was the set right after Return of the Duelist, by the way.
Right.
But when a monster effect is activated and you have no monsters in your graveyard, negate the activation. Then if you control Madolche Pudding Sus, you get to shuffle one random card from your opponent's hand, into the deck. Right. So if they activate a monster effect, and then you could shuffle something like back then. If you shuffled like a Megalo, that was just funny, right?
Yeah.
That's something I did back in the day, right? And so this was really nice because it was kind of like the archetype's Veiler, right? Because it was just good if you could, because hey, you can negate the effect. That's great, right? However, it's more consistent to run Veiler back in the day, so this card didn't see as much success, but people still ran it, including me, and I love getting its second effect off, which is Pudding Cess, and I really like that. This was a very awesome trap card, actually, which, like, compared to, like, T-Break and Waltz, could actually do something, right? A good counter trap.
Right.
Is it usable today? To be honest with you? It's not too bad, but why wouldn't you run Promenade? You know what I mean?
Yeah, Promenade has recursion, too, so...
Exactly. Right, plus it comes in super rare as well, so it's like, But yeah, then we have Madolche Palooza, right? Which is a card that is still used in builds today, actually, right? A lot of people don't like this because you don't really need it as much, including me, but I used to run this for the longest time. And back then you actually did run it because what you'd be able to do is, this was how you spam the board, because sometimes you'd be in a position where you're getting all your Madolches in your hand and you can't summon all of them off the Chateau, right? Because instead of returning a deck, they return in your hand. So you have this thing where you have like 6 Madolches in the hand that you didn't really need. So you would Palooza, special summon like legitimately 5 monsters and just pop off from there.
That was literally Pendulum Summon before Pendulum Summons.
Honestly, basically. Sorry, by the way, guys, if you hear a little bit of sniffling, I have a little bit of allergies. I very much apologize about that.
Yeah, no worries.
But what do you expect? Like, sniffling nerd talking about Madolche, like, typical.
Also, one more thing you guys might have missed too, is you're playing these Madolche, spells and traps, Chateau, maybe, possibly, they could pop your ticket. A lot of people would actually miss this, okay? Tiramisu doesn't have to shuffle back Madolche monsters, but they can also shuffle back any Madolche card, so including Madolche Palooza, T-Break, Knights, Ticket if they pop with MST, Chateau. They can you can literally do that. You can proc up Tiramisu's effect. If you have 2 Chateaus in hand, you activate 1 Chateau, and then play the second one, just to proc up Tiramisu's effect. It was a play back then.
People used to do that, actually, depending on the grave, because sometimes because to activate, you do have to have a material in the grave.
Yes.
Or a Madolche card in the grave, right? So people actually did do that back in the day, because you're going to get your Chateau back, right? You already have your one on the field, right? It wasn't good because you'd have to just neg for no reason, but that was like, sometimes that's just how you had to do it, right? Which was really nice. So that's why I've seen people still play 3 at that time, but I think that's when you didn't need to play 3, right? You only needed to play 3 Chateau post Return of the Duelist, right? So, but yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for mentioning that. Hopefully I didn't say monsters, because...
No, you didn't say, you just glanced over that part.
I said Madolche cards, yeah. Just making sure, yeah. But yeah, that was how it was in Abyss Rising. This was a very good deck back then, along with, I'm going to talk about how it fared against competitive decks post-Tachyon Galaxy. But I will talk about that post-Primal Origin, which is our next build.
And we are going to go right into it. Boom, number 3.
Boom, number 3. So,
And jelly.
before I go into this, I am going over 5 because I didn't want to go over every set that Madolche's got supporting. Because I only want to go into the ones that were very relevant, right? So before I get into the Primal Origin archetype, I want to let you guys know that in Tachyon Galaxy we got Madolche. Food Cake, very quick lesson on that. It helped the deck out a little bit because, indigestion, but because you could banish a monster from the graveyard, so that's how you got rid of like other monsters like your Thunder King, all that, right? To special summon from the deck, and you could special summon Messenger, right? So this was a good card, but it wasn't as good when it came out because we didn't have Angeli at the time, which made this card infinitely better. But back then, the best part about post-Tachyon Galaxy Madolches was it was actually pretty good against competitive decks. It wasn't like a tier 1 deck like Prophecy and E-Dragon, because this was a Dragon Ruler format, but it was so satisfying shuffling both 2 Draco stacks into the extra deck. As a Madolche player, it was one of the best feelings ever.
Absolutely.
I had to mention that really quickly. Now that that's in the past, we're going to go post-Primal Origin. So post-Primal Origin, which was a fantastic set back in the day where we got cards like Artifact Sanctum, and Bujins were actually a threat. Yeah, also home to probably the worst Ghost Rare ever. At least in my opinion. The deck got a card called Madolche Angeli, right? And this deck, there was never a card that hyped up Madolches like Madolche Angeli, right? Not only was it the embodiment of cuteness, but it made the deck tier 1 for a whole 2 weeks. Yeah, people actually brought this to events. It was an $80 ultra rare.
Yeah, it was very expensive.
Ultra rares were 2 per box back then, and you got 1 secret, then you got like 5 supers, right? Along with, you know, an ulti, right? With the possible chance of a ghost, right? But you weren't guaranteed the ulti. There were boxes without ultis, but fact is, right? I remember buying a lot of this set as like when I was like 15 or something. I think I was 15, something like that. And trying to get this card. I remember buying them at $60 actually a piece because I really wanted this card. But this card was the lone fire for the deck and started our combo that you can do today still now. You couldn't do it post Master Duel 4. And this was the go-to combo till Savage Strike.
Yeah, for a long time, man. For a long time, this deck got no further support until I believe Savage Strike came out last year.
Yeah. Well, no, it got it in, what's it called? It was a really amazing set. What is it called? Imperm came out of it.
Oh, Flames of Destruction?
Flames of Destruction, yeah. Flood. I was about to call it like Flood something, but that's like the acronym. So yeah, sometimes I remember the acronym only, right? So like redo for Return of the Duelist, but yeah. So as I was saying, this is when this card came out, people were hyping the whole deck up, including me, because there was a 2-card combo right off the bat that was amazing, right? And we didn't really have a hand trap like Ash to stop it back in the day, right? So most likely, if you're going first, this would be uninterrupted, right? 95% of the time, right?
Right.
If not more. And if you're going second, you had to worry about the back row. Again, this was, I believe, 2014. If I have the year right. If I don't, I apologize. But yeah, so this was the build, and what the combo was, I will explain it very quickly here, is you would normal summon Mewfill, activate its effect, you special summon Madolche Angeli from your hand. So this was a 2-card combo, right? Angeli would then tribute itself to special summon a Madolche from the deck, right? Again, Lone Fire, and you would go into Hoot Cake. And very quickly before we go off, for Angeli, the monster that it special summons would not be able to be destroyed by battle until your next turn, and then it gets shuffled back into the deck. So usually that was kind of relevant back in the day, and it's not right now. I gotta come out my deck profile that, hey, it's actually a really good effect. It is, it just doesn't come up often.
Right.
That's the point. At least, you know, because that would be turn 3, and the game is over turn 3 usually, you know, right? Back then though, it wasn't. Yeah, it's just how it is. So you would tribute off Angeli to special summon your Hoot Cake, so you'd have a Mewfill and then a Hoot Cake on the field. You would activate Hoot Cake's effect to banish Madolche Angeli. You could banish something else if you had it in the graveyard, but 99% chance you didn't, right? Like, I don't know if you Veilered or something, right? You'd banish your Angeli, then you would actually no, you'd actually have to banish Angeli. Special summon Messenger Gelato, right? So now you have those 3 cards.
Right.
Messenger Gelato would proc, and you would search Chateau or Ticket. Most likely you would search depending on what the situation was, or if you had either one in your hand. If you had either one in your hand, it would just help you out, right?
Right.
So these weren't essentially bricks, right? Because it would be more beneficial to have both in your hand. But let's say you would search Chateau, right? So now you have Messenger Auto, Mewfill, and Hookake. You would then overlay Hookake and Mewfill for Levier the Sea Dragon, right? And Levier the Sea Dragon, you detach, then you target a Banish level 4 lower monster, special summon that target to your field, right? Which is very good. You can also do people also used to be able to do Invoker to special summon Messenger Auto from the deck. That's something else people used to do. But
I missed that card,
this
man.
was a little bit, yeah. This was actually a good Madolche extender, but Levier was the way to go. You would special summon your Angeli, right? So now you have a Levier, Angeli, and Messenger Auto, right? You would, and you would detach Mewfill, by the way, right? You could detach Hookake if you want, but Mewfill was the better option, right? It would not screw the combo up. It would just screw up your next turn, right? If you did it wrong. So now you have Mewfill Engrave, Levier, Messenger Auto, and Angeli, right?
Yeah.
You would overlay Messenger Auto and Angeli for Queen Tiramisu, right? And you already have Mewfill in the grave, and by this point Chateau's activated. I forgot to mention that you would activate Chateau. You would not activate Chateau just yet though, because then it would shuffle the Mewfill, and then you wouldn't be able to activate Chimisu's effect. So once you get Chateau, that's when you would activate it. I forgot to mention that. I apologize.
Right.
Right. By this point, I just do stuff like by memory. Like my hands already know what to do. So it's been a long time since I've said this out loud. Then you would, since you have Chimisu and Levier on the field, and then Mewfill and Grave, you would detach Angeli to Grave, and then you would shuffle Mewfill and Angeli back into the deck to shuffle back 2 cards your opponent controls back into the deck. However, since you have Chateau, Mewfill and Angeli would go to hand instead, meaning that you could do the same exact combo next turn.
Amazing.
And now you have a Levier, you have a what's called a Tiramisu, and then you would have Chateau on the field. And if you were able to have a Chateau / ticket in your hand, and you actually and that would be really good, because then you would be able to actually special summon instead of add to your hand, right?
Right.
But again, if you had one of those, that'd be great, but it wasn't super necessary. It was just nice, right, for you to extend a little bit more. People also used to play stuff like Spell Striker back then as well, for a little more damage and be able to extend a bit more, which was not a bad card. People used to play Rhoda, actually, for it to have also like food in the grave, right? So, yeah, you also only played 1 pudding cess at this point. Some players didn't even want to play it at all, because the deck was just strong enough at this point that you didn't need to play a lot of cards, right? That you used to, right? For example, Crestfin, a lot of players didn't want to play Crestfin. I ended up still playing Crestfin only because I love the card a lot. And I still thought it was a great card to keep going into your plays, proc ticket. I thought it was great, right? And it was always a very, very good card, right? So the deck had a lot of plays at this point, and the deck was functional. Was it tier 1 back in the day? It fell off right away. People saw it as a tier 2 deck, and people still loved it. And you still saw it at like events, the occasional top, all that. But it wasn't a competitive deck, but it was in a fine place, right?
Right.
You know, it was a household name. And Primal Origins is really where the deck became, saw its first, like, I guess, competitive love in a way. I mean, like, actually at a somewhat consistent basis. But yeah, keep going. Alchemy?
Yeah, it seems like this build is more like, slow control, and then when your opponent least expects it, you pop off and go into Tiramisu. Because remember, back then, we didn't have Nibiru. And especially with, like, Invoker, you could proc off Messenger Lalo twice in 1 turn to get both Chateau and Ticket in the same turn, or even double Ticket.
Correct. It would depend on your board and your hand, though, because you could do a combo. I don't know if there was a combo where you could do Messenger Lalo twice back then. That was consistent enough.
I think if you do the Mewfill and Angeli combo, right, you could pop off, grab Hookake, get into Messenger Lotto, and then since you'd have Mewfill and Hookake, you go into Invoker, and Invoker summon Messenger Lotto another one. And
well,
I'm
no,
not
but
sure.
then you don't control.
Oh, you don't have a Beast Warrior. Oh, okay. Never mind.
That's why.
Scrap that.
Yeah.
Scrap
no,
that.
You're good. You're good. There could have probably been a way, I think, but it was either not consistent or like we just didn't know it back then, right? Because nowadays people are finding like hand loops with ice barriers and all this shit. Like, Creativity back in the day was great, but it wasn't as degenerate. So
Right.
deck was great. Also, we're gonna take a little quick thing for me to plug myself again. If
Mm-hmm.
you guys love what I'm doing on this channel, please check out my channel. I'm begging you. Yeah, but really, I do a lot of stuff on my channel, including a Madolche deck profile and a lot of stuff that you guys might like. So hopefully you guys do check me out. And if you do, leave a comment. Tell me that you're from AkemiTCG. So, yeah, let's get right into the fourth build here.
The 4 year later build. Boom! Savage Strike. 4 years later.
Okay, yeah, so I made this a little more. By the way, don't take this as like a for sure build or nothing, but it wasn't a bad. For back then, this is actually a pretty okay build.
Mm-hmm.
Except for maybe the double summons, right? Because I had to remember this offhand. But very quickly before I start this, we did get some support in Flood, Flames of Destruction. We got Madolche Sistart. However, Madolche Sistart didn't really add anything to the deck. It just let the deck play because once we got Master Rule 4, just like many other decks, a lot of players couldn't play old decks because they didn't have links, right? They have to go into the generic links, like, Mystic
Right.
Radiant, for example, right? And that really sucked. When we got our Madolche linked, everyone was hoping for an extra normal summon so that we can possibly do a combo like Madolche Levier, because that was impossible under Master Rule 4, right? But this card, all it really does is it could save a, it could save itself, which nobody really cared about too much, and it protects your Madolche Spellcast if it points to a Madolche monster, right? Which was, it just didn't really do anything, right? The deck, it didn't really progress the deck, right? No one really cared too much, right?
Right.
So that's why you guys don't see a Flood build here, because there's nothing to talk. This is what happened when everyone saw the link. Disappointment. We wanted something, we didn't get it. Until Savage Strike, however, right? So Savage Strike, right? Yeah, it's so funny how this build's so different. We got one new card. However, that card changed the whole game.
This card's game breaking. This card kills, makes the deck so much better.
Yes, it does, because the deck needed an extra summon. That was the biggest problem, along with getting stopped easily. What this card does is, if you have no monsters in the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's already an extender, which is really nice, right? That's what we need. However, with a special summon, you can special summon one Madolche monster from your hand or deck, except for itself. But you reduce its level by 1. But usually you would special summon either Angeli or putting Cess, which would let you go into Chocolate a la Monde, right? Which I'll explain in a second here. But with this card, now Madolche's had a 1-card OTK with Madolche, right? Because you'd be able to normal summon Madolche, add this to your hand, special summon it, activate its effect to special summon, putting Cess, right? Or maybe it would be Angeli back then. I forgot this combo right off the top of my head, right? If I don't have the cards right in front of me. But you'd be able to pop off and just spam the board with monsters, and at least combo off and make a somewhat good board, right? Even without extensive knowledge of the combos, which was really good. But you could also special summon putting Cess, which was really nice, and go into Chocolate a la Monde. That was what one of the best parts about this card was, right?
Right.
Because you would go, by the way, if you guys are wondering really quickly, you would go into Tiramisu, and then you would go into Chocolate a la Monde. But you would also play Teacher, right, which is also a very good card, because you'd also, because there's a combo where you'd be able to detach from Teacher as well, then overlay for Chocolate a la Monde, right? Because Teacher protects itself, and then you would be able to go off with Chocolate a la Monde, because you'd be able to special summon from the deck using its effect, and then you could also start to extend if you have Chateau and everything, right? Which, if we get to the combos, I'll be here for 10 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to. Glass of Flake came out of Dark Neostorm. It was still playable with 3 Tiramisu, doing all the Chocolate a la Monde combos, but making it with Teacher was way better. A lot of people like to play this card at 3, Teacher. I don't like to. I just think that at 2 it does its job perfectly fine. Right? Especially if you're not playing Extra. If you're not playing Extra, 2 Glass of Flay is perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
So, that's my honest opinion here. But the build back then was very good, because it was more of, you could special from the deck multiple times with Chocolate a la Monde, depending, or you could just do normal Madolche shenanigans, right? If you want, right? You could also go into a big into links, depending if you were not locked in, because putting Sasor does lock you in.
Mm-hmm.
This card was now a very good OTK deck where you would run Ash, because Ash was such a good hand trap back in the day, and you could banish it off Hoot Cake, right?
Yeah.
The build didn't change too much, by the way, except for shortening like Hoot Cake down to 2, right? And Message at 2 was always kind of a thing. I always used to run 3, but then to make room you'd run 2, and you don't want to draw it, but it was a good card, and you'd be able to proc Message Auto consistently twice as well, so you would be able to get Chateau and Ticket, right?
Right.
Gamma was a fantastic hand trap because it would not be in your graveyard; it would banish itself along with Driver, right? And this was a good go second deck, like used to use evenly. And some people, I got this in my comment section. It's like, how are you gonna OTK through evenly? I'm like, listen, if I could. Madolches can go first, right, and set up a board right now, right? Even in this build, right, you can set up a board with like, a somewhat decent board. If you can get rid of all your opponent's advantage, right, and you could trade 1 card for 7, and then just make your board OTK them next turn, you're set, right?
Right.
So I don't know why that was just a question I had. Like one person asked it, but this deck was because plus you had Imperm to like Imperm something so you could keep playing Gamma Seal. For like Floodgates or whatever, Twin Twisters you'd run because traps just killed this deck. This was a great going second deck. It got a little bit of success, but the fact of the matter is the deck was basically at its prime. You could still come off, you could still OTK. A lot of people were also looking at Cyber Dragons back then. And overall, this was a great deck. I was actually able to play it, and I absolutely loved it, right? And I was always happy, and I always thought to myself that this was the final step in Madolche. I really did. Right? And I was like, you know what? That's fine. Because all Madolche players wanted was their extra normal summon. Right? Which we never thought we'd get until Echo.
And
which is our next build, actually.
One more thing you guys might have missed too. Glass Souffle, if you have Glass Souffle with Chateau on the field, you can actually shuffle back. It says 2 cards from the graveyard. It does not specify Madolche monsters. And it does not specify the graveyard. So you can actually target, shuffle back stuff from your opponent's graveyard as well, and it's a quick effect.
Yeah.
So just a heads up there. And you can shuffle back your Gamma if it's somehow in the graveyard for whatever reason, or even your Ash Blossom that you may have pitched off of Twin Twisters. And then instead of that going back to your deck, it goes back to your hand because of Chateau.
Yeah, that actually is a very good effect. I actually forgot about. I remember doing this for like Solemns as well. Like it was really nice, right? Putting those back there. People really overhyped Glass of Flame. It's a very good card. That's all I'm gonna say.
Absolutely.
I was very excited when I saw it. By the way, I wish it just had a super rare. That's all I have to say. That's all I'm gonna say.
Maybe you'll get an ulti. Who knows?
Oh man, it'd be crazy, but. Yeah, then we're gonna get into post-eternity code, right?
This is the most updated version of this build.
Yeah, I have a deck profile of this on my channel, by the way, right? So don't take the builds over here aren't bad, but just don't take them as finalized. Like, do your own research, see more builds, right? This is what I threw together, right? Echo. We literally got our extra... Wait, where the hell is Salon?
You didn't put it in.
Wow, I'm dumb. Okay,
so you gotta play 3 of those.
I apologize so much. So basically, the deck got 2 brand new cards, and that's all I'm really gonna go over here. Is we not only with our 1 card combos, right, that we had, but now we can do an extra normal summon, right? Because I completely forgot that Konami's very late to the party. They probably like heard about this a year and a half later and finally made it.
Right.
I completely forgot about this. Like, whatever we're complaining about, like, right now in Yu-Gi-Oh!, we might get, like, in a year and a half, right? Because Konami's that far behind. But you get an extra normal summon, which is very nice because you can just keep playing, keep spamming the board with more Madolches, more, what's it called, Tiramisus, and more big beaters, which is very, very nice, right? But the best part about this card as well, that is the best part. I still do love the normal summon a little bit more than the second effect.
Oh, yeah.
Because I still love OTK Madolches. I know people are like, oh, it's more of a going first. I'll always play OTK Madolches. It's my favorite. Not that this deck could go first and build a great board, but if you're like me, I like to OTK. I have a lot of success that way. But play however you want. Like, Madolches isn't a deck that's set in stone, and I love decks that can go first and second. That is awesome to me, right?
Right.
So that's another thing I love about Madolche. Like, I love the ability to go first and second. That's great, and I love decks that have that, right? You know, all Madolche players are good players, but okay, well, not really, but you know, right? So basically, when a Madolche monster is shuffled from the grave, that or you control is added to your hand or shuffled back into the main deck by a card effect, you save a Madolche card, spell or trap from the deck to the field, which is really good. I know I butchered the words there, and you can set a lot of things, right? But we're gonna go over the new trap first of all, which is Madolche Promenade, which you basically target one face-up card your opponent controls and one Madolche monster you control in the graveyard. Negate the effects of that opponent's card until the end of this turn, and if you do, return your monster to the hand. So what's really nice about this is you get to return stuff from the grave or hand. You get to proc ticket, which is really nice. And you also get to proc Salon as well to set your second Promenade. Now, Promenade's a once per turn, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
it's a hard once per turn. Each effect.
Once per turn, just making sure, right? But you can still set it from the deck as well. You have to remember that, which is really nice. So it replaces itself for next turn, right? Which is really nice. So it's an interrupt, which is really nice. And it's a free interrupt, right? So if you're going first, you can set this up. If you're OTK, you can set this up, right? And it's really, really nice. Especially because what people don't realize about this is you could activate this card on spells as well, right? It's not just like your opponent normal summons a monster, right? For example, if your opponent activates Engage, right? I know it's a banned card, but just go with it, right? You can literally activate Promenade and negate Engage.
Absolutely.
Right? You can do this for like Polymerization as well, right? Fusion spell cards as well. Like, as long as you could respond to them, like unlike Super Poly, which is, you know, spell speed 4, which is, you know, spell speed 4 is healthy for the, you know, it's great. Sarcasm.
Yeah, absolutely
but
amazing.
You guys get the point, right? This is a very good Omni negate. It reminds me of Orchestrated Crescendo, I believe.
Crescendo, except it doesn't have the little spell speed 3 on it, unfortunately. So you can't negate any Solemns with this, which kind of sucks, but...
True, but it's still a pretty good, great card, right? And the extra normal summon really makes this deck pop off. You can also shorten your deck out. The build didn't change too much. Again, people might like question evenly still. Hey, main deck evenly turn 1 if you lose that, what's it called?
The dice roll.
Like, they just don't expect it on round 1. Evenly, like, they're gonna sell all their stuff. Like, evenly is best when people don't think you haven't sided it.
Absolutely.
Round 2 at big events, people are gonna expect it. Round 1, not as much. So, the deck has a lot of turning points here. Again, I don't know why I didn't have Salon. It feels so dumb.
It happens, man. It happens.
Yeah, and now this deck is actually having PPG success. People are usually putting Sessor and Adamanticators, and I swear, putting Sessor gets hit because of fucking Adamanticators, I am literally gonna cry.
Not gonna lie, I do not like this card in Adamanticator because it's literally only good going turn 1. Because you can only special summon if you have no monsters in the graveyard, so it just doesn't. It really just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I guess it's like an Earth level 4. That's so summon. So it's not even a rock. It's a fairy, right?
Yeah.
But basically, the deck, what this deck could do is it could go first and set up a board. Now that actually has an interrupt because you could have Glass Flay as like a weird. Glass Flay is like an interrupt, but it's a very, very odd interrupt. It's not consistent enough. But as Akemi said, it does come up. But it can protect itself, right? You could set up a board. You could set up Promenade. You could set up your traps, right? All that jazz, right? Depending on what you feel like, right?
Right.
And you could set for your next turn, right? Get advantage and all that. So it's not bad going first. I still think it's better going second. And you can just play through a bunch of stuff now, right? Like, you can literally main Nibiru, all that, like, all that jazz. And it's just great. Like, main deck Nibiru is not bad either if you guys want to
I think I think main deck Nibiru is pretty good.
This isn't a final build. I just want to say that one last time because I'm going to see someone in the comments saying, why do you play blanket? Whatever. This is not a final build. It's just a good build that is, you know, that I could show. Like, there would be a few tweaks that I'd like to make, right? For example, you know, not putting the Madolche Salon, right? But you get the point, right? Extra deck is also kind of tight here. I like playing 2 Glass of Flay, 2 Sistart usually. A lot of people are like, you have to max out 3 on everything. I play the deck a lot. If you're smart with it, I've never needed more, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if you're not playing extra. You do not need to play 3 of everything. Like 3 Tiramisu, 2 Chocolate Almond, 2 Glass of Flay, 2 Sistart, good enough, right?
Yeah,
and to be fair, especially with Sistart, I almost never need more than 1. It's literally just the link if you're locked into putting Sasor. And honestly, now that we're in Master Rule 5, I'm actually gonna play test that one and see how it fares. Cause like, it's just not a good card. Like, you're not locked into it anymore. You don't have to use it because we're not in Master Rule 5. So, again, I'm not calling this card bad. I'm just saying you might not you don't rely on it anymore.
Absolutely agree on that.
Right? You can spam the war with your Alamons and Tiramisus and never have to look at this card. So, that's just my opinion, guys. I've been playing Madolches for years and years, right? That doesn't mean I'm like one of the best Madolche players or anything. But I play it on and off. I've had all the cards since Return of the Duelist. I have it all high rarity as well. So, if you guys want to check out that high rarity deck profile, you know, on my channel. And if you guys could leave it, like and subscribe. I also want to say shout outs to AkemiTCG for having me on. Thank you for letting me rant about my favorite deck for I don't even know how long this video is, but it felt like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
A clean 10 minutes, of course.
You're being sarcastic. I can't tell. I was having but,
clean 10 minutes.
Like, cool 10 minutes. Not even 10 minutes yet. It's like, but yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. My final thoughts on this deck, I guess, really quickly is this is one of the funnest decks to me. I highly suggest trying it out. However, with its price point, I completely understand people being shy from the deck. What I would highly recommend, very quickly, is getting like ultra pudding cesses from Return of the Duelist. Commons are a little too much money in my opinion, so just go for the ultras. Possibly the ulti because it looks absolutely gorgeous. For pudding cess, I would get the rest of the deck, except for up to the Madolche at this point, right? Like ultra rare Madolches from dual power. Angeles, I would wait for the Armageddon reprint and get those. I don't know why people are buying them out right now. Do not buy out the originals. I have the originals because I've had it for a while, and that's the thing about Madolche players is people who love Madolches have their cards and they don't want to get rid of them. That's also why there's not that many on the market, at least in my opinion, right?
Right.
Like, any person who's been playing Madolches for X amount of time will never get rid of their deck. That says something about the deck. Hoot Cakes, if you really want to get them right now, it's okay, but, you know, whatever, right?
They're getting reprinted, I believe, too.
I don't know if it's confirmed, so I can't say. But if it's not getting reprinted, it still could be in Armageddon, because we do not have that full spoiler list, I believe, at the time of this recording. So, if you want to pick up Hoot Cakes, though, for like, I don't know, $7-8, like originals, it's not the worst thing in the world. And then pick up the rest of the, like, Salons at 2 are fine, you know, Chitos, all that. As for the extra deck that are Madolche, I think you could pick that all of it up, besides maybe Tiramisu's. Maybe they'll get reprinted, but Ultra Rare's first sets from Miss Rising are absolutely stunning. It's not the worst thing in the world if you pick them up. I have ultis that I spent $9 on, I think, right?
Back in the day,
Literally,
right?
I got my ulti Tiramisu's for $9, except for one that I pulled in my 500 special. I actually had to sell one of my Tiramisu's for help my mother with bills, right? Had to send a little bit of money back home. You guys know how it is, right? And I just didn't need the third at that point, right? Because that wasn't where the build was going. This was like a while time ago, and I always regretted it a little bit too. But you know, sometimes you need cash. Luckily, I had my third, and I was able to pull it, so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
But ultras aren't too bad. I'm just saying because I know a lot of people want to play this deck, but they don't want to play the price tag, right? Which I completely understand. But the reason I'm also saying to get these cards is whatever doesn't get reprinted will go up. Like I could see Messenger Lotto hitting like a big price point if other cards get reprinted, and this is one of the only cards that hasn't. It's gonna go up, for example, right? That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you got to get a deck slowly, but you'll surely get it, right?
Right.
This deck is definitely gonna be affordable one day, just especially if you play your cards right. I did. But yeah, that's like my closing thoughts. I highly recommend this deck to anyone who wants to play fun combo deck or have just a great fun deck. Like the artwork here is amazing. And that's all I have to say.
Alright, thank you so much, Thomas, from Team Sakurasou. Hope you all enjoyed this podcast of the Yugi panel. And everyone, don't forget, it's time to duel.
The world ends now.